Hey everybody, welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yee, and today I'm taking a look at the newest of the T games from Board and Dice. This is a series like Teotihuacan and Tabannusi. This one is Tabannusi, the Builders of Ur, co-designed by Daniel Tascini and David Spada. I'm going to show you how it plays, but I'm not going to give you a comprehensive rules overview because it's just going to be too much. I'm going to show you instead kind of how the game works, the few districts and the actions, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Here's an example setup for Tabannusi, the Builders of Ur. This is a very busy board, but it's basically broken down into 5 regions, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, from which you'll be drafting dice and taking actions. Also on the board are these tracks, which will be multipliers, where you will multiply the number of buildings of that color that you control times wherever you are on this track. These are objectives where if you complete the top part, you get the rewards shown on the bottom. And then over here, these are the free action reminders as well as the round trackers. As this is a dice drafting game, when all the dice from one barge have been drafted, then a scoring is triggered for this region, and each region scores a little bit differently. But once the barge is empty, the player who empties it out gets a gold bar, which is a wild resource. You score that region, and then play continues until 5 of these scoring events have been triggered. Then it's the end game, and all 5 districts will score once again. So let's talk about what you do at each of the 5 districts, starting at district number 5. On your turn, you're going to draft one of these dice, and then you're going to put it in front of you. The number only matters because you're going to send your bell ringer to that region, so in this case number 4, to say, hey, at the end of my turn, I'm reminding myself that my next action will have to be done at action space number 4. So after I take the die and move my bell ringer over there, I have these resources. I can take 2 actions in this spot. Some of the actions are pre-printed on the board, others are randomly distributed around. I can take any 2 actions that I want. So in the ziggurat area, I can spend, for example, a green resource, and I have this wild green resource over here, and then I can build houses into the ziggurat to help me move up tracks and to get other kinds of endgame scoring triggers. After I've done the 2 actions, I'm going to move my person over here, and that indicates that on my next turn, I'll have to draft a die from action spot number 4 and take the actions here. After other players go, it's my turn again. I'll take one of these dice and then move my bell ringer there, of course. You can even stay in the same region if you draft the same number. Over here in the shipyard, you can spend gold bars to build up houses along the outside, which will give you an instant or an ongoing benefit, and you can spend resources here to put markers, control markers, on these different technologies, which will allow you to get more boosts throughout the game. For example, this one, every time I put another marker out on other ships, I'll get 2 points. Or I can reflip over my renewable resources more easily. These are just technology tiles. Over here in districts 3 through 1, they all function about the same. On your turn, you can try to build up the regions. In order to be able to build a building, it's a 2-step process. The first step is to put out a planning token, or a kind of like a district planning thing. So I could put something out here, and I put my control marker on it. I get whatever the benefit of the icon is that I cover up. And then on another action, whether I or somebody else do it, you can actually build this and turn it into a building miniature that will increase the number of buildings you have of that color for your multiplying of scores. One thing that should be noted is that multiple players can put these plannings together like so. And if I, as the orange player, choose to build this building up, I'm going to be building a 3-size white building, which is the maximum. I'm going to put one of my control markers out onto it, getting any bonuses that I might uncover. I have to pay more resources if I have my own control markers, but I don't have to pay more if other players have their control markers on here. However, because I'm booting out 2 of these red control markers, red is going to be able to move up the white track 2 steps, so I am helping them out. I should also mention that there are waterway and garden tiles that can be added out to the board. So waterways are placed out so that garden tiles can be placed around onto the districts, and garden tiles adjacent to an already built building is going to increase the size of it. So if players were able to do this, they would have This one size brown building would actually be 3 size. If you put waterways out covering these symbols here, you don't get the bonuses on them, but if you put gardens on top of waterway tiles that show bonuses, you do get those as well. Also, if you control a garden tile adjacent to a plan that gets turned into a building, if you are the owner of that garden space, you also get to choose what track you want to move up. So when each district runs out of dice eventually and triggers scoring, in these city districts, you're going to multiply the number of white buildings that you control, say here 4, times where you are in this track, 3. That's 12 points for me. Here in the shipping district, if you have houses on top of a row or column where you have markers controlling technology, you're going to get that many points, in this case 2. And then the ziggurats will score you points based on different conditions, like this one, for example, is having houses along the outside of the shipping district. After all 5 interim scorings have been completed, you're going to score up all 5 regions one more time, and the player who has the most points is the winner. So this whole series of games is, it's a series of these fairly heavy, rules-intensive games that oftentimes have a lot of rewarding kind of combo turns. A lot of these are very procedural, where actions have kind of a stepwise process, a flow that you have to go down to make sure that you're doing all of them. It's been notable in all of them, starting with even the Teotihuacan, which is one of my favorite games. I rank it very, very highly. Each time that I play another one of these T games, I feel a little bit more bogged down in rules, and so I'm not sure if that they are getting more complex, or if I feel like there's just a lot of rules load to kind of hold in one's head to be able to play through a single game of this. It's very procedural. I do like a lot of what's going on here, though. The dice drafting is very clever. I like that the dice number only matters because that's going to send you to a different action space. But once it's in front of you, it's just a resource cube. I like the renewable resource cubes. You can always spend any die to flip back over one of those tiles, so you have some flexibility, and I think that those things are neat. I appreciate that this is an interactive game, unlike a lot of people who kind of claim that a lot of dry, heavier Euro games are becoming more about multiplayer solitaire. You just kind of keep to yourself. That is both a boon and, for me, kind of one of the weaknesses of this game, because as you build up those plans around the different city blocks, other players can complete them. Even if they have no stake in that building whatsoever, they didn't contribute any of those tiles that they put out there. They don't have any of their control marker discs on there. Now it's going to give you a benefit. There's some interaction going on, but I think that with the amount of rules and the amount of procedural flow that every action takes in this game, I don't know if the fact that it's interactive really speaks to my tastes in gaming. I find that if you are sitting there and you're going to complete one of those tiles and turn it into a building, you have to go through the steps. Okay, what are the costs? Do I have enough resources to pay for it? If I bump these out, which players are going to be moving up on different tracks? Do I have to pay extra because I have my own control marker on it? Do other people have garden tiles that they have built with their control markers on top of the garden tiles adjacent to the plans that I'm converting into buildings? Because if they do, they get to move up tracks, but they get to, on that one, move up any color of track of their choice. However, if I kick their control markers off of a white building that I'm constructing, they can only go up on the white track. There's almost too much proceduralness for the amount of interaction that there is in this game. And I think that, for me, that might be why a lot of these games that have heavy rule sets tend to be going multiplayer solitaire, because it's just a smoother experience. The game feels a little bit clutchy, where you're kind of skipping and halting a little bit as you're trying to figure out how to make this action happen. And other players are sitting there excited. Yeah, bump me up the tracks. Oh, no, you're not actually doing. Oh, you couldn't afford it. That experience for me is clutchy. The amount of times that you would have to play this to smoothen out those rough edges is going to be very difficult, because there are so many rules to teach. My overview of the game I couldn't teach all of the rules. I couldn't even give you a decent portion of how everything works. I did not mention how much buildings cost when you build them. I did not mention the many different types of symbols that there are. This game is just symbology soup. There's so many, and you have to answer so many questions. The technology tiles, I love technology tiles in games. And yet in this one, I found that some of the technology tiles were straightforward. When you get a ship, when you put a thing on a new technology, you get 2 points. Love it. Other ones are are the ones fall prey to that procedurality and complexity of the rule set. Again, every time that you construct a building that you boot somebody else's control markers off, you can then pay a resource in order to be able to move up a track of your choice. I have to remember, that's not terribly complex in and of itself, but I got to remember to insert that in the middle of now that other 7-step process that I told you earlier about building buildings. I like it. I like that there's rewards as you construct more things. As you pull buildings off your player board, you get gold, and then you get extra disc control markers. But then in the last column, you don't get anything. But if you empty out all the columns, you get rewards for that. So there's rewards all around. You put out a planning tile in a city district, and you get whatever reward is shown on that tile. There's a lot of abilities to combo things, but just the width of the rules complexity. There's complexity in terms of depth, the strategy that's emergent in figuring things out, and there's also, I'm going to call it just kind of the width, the span of the rules complexity. The width of the complexity in this game is so much that I have trouble digging into the depths of it. When you teach new players, you just have to keep them afloat. You just have to keep them playing the rules correctly, so it's harder to dive in deep. Maybe this is a great game for you because you have a game group that really wants to play this game over and over and over again. The interaction makes this one more interesting than a lot of the multiplayer solitaire games for people. But I'm finding it hard to enjoy and to bring back to the table and to keep trying to play. Overall, I'm going to be giving this game a 6 because I do have fun with it. I do have fun getting technology tiles. I do have fun building in the ziggurat and moving up tracks, but I'm finding that almost every aspect about this game, the tracks, the technology, the score multiplier, the tightness, is less rewarding than some of the previous games by the same designer and some of the people who have developed these games than other ones. I'm not finding this one to be one that I'm compelled by. I wouldn't recommend this as your first of these heavier T games from Board and Dice. I'm not even recommending that if you like some of the other ones that you might necessarily even like this one. I have fun when I play it, but it's not one I don't think I can come back to it because I'm going to drop and forget rules. I enjoy several of these heavy games, but there comes a point where you say, I'm going to kind of pick and choose my favorites, then I'm going to keep the rules up here so that when someone says, let's play something crunchy. I know what we should play tonight. Let's pull out Teotihuacan. Let's pull out something that I can know by heart and I'm invested in. This one's hard for me to invest in. So that's my thoughts on Tabannusi, the Builders of Ur. Hope that was helpful and insightful for you, and thanks for coming by another Dice Tower review. My name is Chris Yee. Have a great one.